Hey, what's going on everybody? Ghost Dragon 1182 here, and in this video we're going to talk about my Epiphone Les Paul Standard 60s. First and foremost, we're going to get the specs out of the way. According to Epiphone's website, we have a mahogany body with a AAA flame maple cap, which we're going to come back to this later. A slim taper 60s C-shaped mahogany neck with an Indian laurel fretboard. 24.75 inch scale length, 22 medium jumbo frets, Graphtec self-lubricating nut. Lock-tone tunematic bridge and stop tail pieces basically means that the bridge and the tailpiece just don't fall off the posts when you take the strings off. Grover Rotomatic 18:1 tuners. Epiphone Pro Bucker 2 in the neck and a Pro Bucker 3 in the bridge. CTS electronics with 60s style wiring, and for colors it comes in black, iced tea burst, and bourbon burst, which is the one that I have. Out of the box, the guitar is beautiful. The bourbon burst was exactly what I wanted, and while I did shop around for other options because I didn't really want to send money Gibson's way, I settled on this guitar because in reality, as much as I wanted to avoid it, none of the other alternatives I looked at fit what I was looking for. Either the color was slightly off or it just didn't match at all what I wanted. The guitar, it's glossy. The top is glossy, the sides, the back, the neck, the headstock, it's glossy. But it does look nice when you shine it up. The fingerprints obviously are going to show really easily, but it's a very stunning looking guitar. And while I didn't typically like high gloss finishes on necks, I prefer like a thin satin finish. This finish doesn't really hinder my left hand in any way, but I did grow up playing an Epiphone Les Paul and a Gibson SG, so kind of used to it. It's just not a preference. While the neck isn't as fat feeling as like the mid-90s Epiphone that I had, nor is it as big as the neck that was on my SG, it's still a little bit bigger than say a modern C, but it still feels pretty good. One thing that may throw people though is, and I'm not super familiar with the 60s era Gibsons, but the middle of the back of the neck has almost like kind of like a flat spot running up the length of it. And it isn't a flaw with this particular guitar, as it's in all the standard 60s models from what I've read and from the few videos that are out there. But back to the flame maple top though, Epiphone is calling it a AA flame maple cap, but I've been reading mixed things on that. It's definitely a maple cap, but it's very likely that the flame maple part is a veneer, but nobody seems to know for sure. However, given the price point, I'm going to say it's likely that it's a veneer. Either way, this particular example, it looks great. It's worth noting though that the body isn't a single piece. Mine in particular looks like it's 3 pieces with a veneer of mahogany over the back to make it look like one piece from that angle. But if you're looking at it from the sides, you can clearly see the lines. As to be expected though, again, for this price point. Fit and finish is good, some minor finish flaws, some clear got on the binding on the neck where it meets the body. But I have seen Gibsons with this issue too, and in some places there's just a wee bit of color on the binding. Casual observation, probably won't notice any of this stuff, but because I was looking for it, I found it. It doesn't take away from the overall appeal of the instrument, but for the sake of honesty and transparency, it's worth noting. The Grover tuners are miles better than the tuners that were on my old Epiphone. I typically use hip shot locking tuners, but I'll likely be leaving these alone for the foreseeable future. The guitar was playable out of the box and was set up good. However, I did order this particular instrument from the Chicago Music Exchange, who likely set it up before sending it out to me. I haven't had issues with fret buzz or any of the issues as far as like high frets or anything like that, because I have seen that has been an issue on some models that people have been picking up and reviewing. I switched the strings out. It came with 10 to 46 gauge strings. I took those off and put on Ernie Ball Ultra Slinky strings, which are 10, 13, 17, 28, 38, 48. So the high strings are where I like them for standard tuning or a half step down, but I get a little bit more tightness on the bass strings for the chugga-chuggas and the galloping type of stuff I like to play. But even after putting these strings on, all I really had to do was a slight intonation adjustment, and I was good to go. I had thought about swapping out the pickups, but these Pro Buckers, they sound good. They've handled everything I've thrown at them, so I'm just going to leave them in. Since we're talking about the pickups, I guess that leads into how does it sound. Well, I'm going to hook it up to a Line 6 Helix, bring up a patch, and we'll see how that goes. I will give you a quick disclaimer though, I am not a shredder, so prepare for some riffing. Is the Epiphone Les Paul Standard 60's a guitar worthy of the $5.99 asking price? I think so. It looks great, it sounds great, plays great. Your mileage may vary on that part though, because like I said, I've seen mixed reviews. Some people have had issues with high frets or buzzing and all that stuff, so I guess be cautious. Maybe go to a Guitar Center or wherever and try them out first. I didn't have the issue with taking the plunge on ordering one online because I do know enough to level frets and things like that if I would have had that issue I could have addressed it, but I didn't. I do feel like some of the people that are disappointed with the guitar are people that have a misconception that because it's inspired by Gibson that it should be exactly like a Gibson, which you're talking about a guitar that's half the price, a third of the price of a Gibson Les Paul. It's not going to be exactly like a Gibson, so I think people need to kind of temper their expectations as far as that. It's miles better than what I expected from an Epiphone given my previous experiences, but yeah, it's not going to be a Gibson. It's not going to have the little things that make a Gibson. Still though, it's a fine guitar and it's worth a look. I don't regret the purchase a bit, but I will say it would have been nice that if for the price they could have thrown in a case to maybe sweeten the deal a little bit, but that's neither here nor there. It's still worth the price tag attached to it, and I'm impressed with the quality enough with this instrument that I really want to get my hands on a Les Paul Muse and see how they are. But as far as the Les Paul Standard 60s from Epiphone's inspired by Gibson line, for me it's a winner. I like it, and maybe you will too.